What is up, guys? Rick Hackus here with an absolutely awesome theory about the next expansion coming to Destiny, The Rise of Iron. Now quickly, for those of you who may not know, the Rise of Iron expansion was unintentionally revealed when this poster here was leaked on Reddit. Now since then, Kotaku's Bungie insider sources have confirmed its authenticity, and it's been several days since the event, and Activision and Bungie have not denied its authenticity either. So by all appearances, this looks legitimately like the next expansion coming to Destiny. Now, this theory specifically deals with the fact that perhaps the Rise of Iron expansion isn't just tacked on to what we've done so far, and in fact, perhaps this expansion takes place in the past. We're going to be discussing this theory and what it's talking about, and also discussing a key piece of evidence that I don't think anyone else has discussed anywhere else, and I think it's really going to turn the scales in whether or not this theory is correct. So I hope you stay tuned to that. But let's start out by talking about where did this theory come from? What's the evidence pointing people in the direction that perhaps the Rise of Iron takes place in the past? Well, Reddit user FuzzleHC created this GIF here, which you can see he identified the location, or the supposed location, to where the Rise of Iron is supposed to take place by identifying the section of the wall of the Cosmodrome where the poster is located. Now, as you can see, if you look at the stone pillars, it does look somewhat anatomically correct, and also you can see the red circle with the Russian lettering that is on both sections of this wall. It's not perfectly anatomically correct. You can see, obviously, in the in-game version, the red circle is much further from the stone pillar. However, they both kind of do look similar, and remember, an artist's rendition is going to be different, perhaps, just anatomically, than the actual in-game version. So that does kind of make sense that they don't match up perfectly. Now, a lot of you may be thinking, where is that piece of the wall? It looks familiar, but I can't quite place it. Well, it's no other than an often forgotten but very important piece of the Cosmodrome, and it's actually, in fact, where you were revived by your ghost in the very first few seconds of Destiny. Now, this information has already got a lot of people speculating, well, what if you actually find out how you die? You were revived in the first few seconds of Destiny by your ghost, but how did you die initially? Perhaps you were part of some big battle. Perhaps you were part of the Battle of Twilight Gap. And Twilight Gap was a huge battle in the defense of the last city, and Lord Saladin, which we see standing front and center in this promotional poster for Rise of Iron, he is known as the hero of Twilight Gap. He was the person who led the defense and really turned that battle around. Perhaps the picture in the promotional poster is showing Lord Saladin standing in defense of the last city during the Battle of Twilight Gap. Perhaps that's where you died before the events of Destiny. You get to figure out, you get to take part in the battle that led to your death. Now, obviously, that would be an awesome mission. Furthermore, evidence for this DLC taking place in the past also concerns the Iron Lords and, Lord Saladin's founding of the Iron Banner and the history of that, grimoire and lore-wise. Now, I actually did a whole video on the Iron Lords and their place, their information, and their lore within the game. I'll link that in the description down below, but essentially, the Iron Lords, and we're gonna see, this is called the Rise of Iron. Lord Saladin founded the Iron Banner. All of this stuff involving iron came from the fact that the Iron Lords were the heroes of a battle called the Six Fronts, and that was waged against the last city in the very early stages of the Traveler setting up shop above, again, the last city. The Fallen tried to invade, and it was the big battle that turned the tide for the Guardians' favor. The heroes that emerged were the Iron Lords. They formed the original Iron Banner, and there has been more Iron Lords since those original Iron Lords emerged. Lord Saladin is often considered an Iron Lord, and he never fought in the Battle of Six Fronts. So all of this history involving the Iron Lords, all of this takes place in the past, and all of the massive invasions of the last city, to which this looks in the promotional poster like there has been an invasion. There's a giant gaping hole in the wall guarding the last city, so there's some sort of battle or invasion taking place. All of that occurred in the past. And I think it's fair to say that after all of the events that we as Guardians have done in Destiny, that it doesn't right now seem like a huge invasion of the last city is viable. It seems like we have the enemy on the back foot, for goodness sakes. So all of that is really the evidence on which this theory is based, that this upcoming DLC, or at least portions or certain missions in this upcoming expansion, take place in the past. You get to see how you died, you get to take part in Twilight Gap, perhaps even the Battle of Six Fronts, and I think that is plausible. Maybe not the entire DLC, but at least certain missions. It would be really cool to have a mission where you get to, even through a memory, or you just get to replay not even as your own Guardian, but perhaps you get to replay as Lord Saladin himself. You get to fight in the Battle of Twilight Gap. That would be really fun to do. However, there is one key factor that I haven't heard anyone else talk about that really goes against this theory, and that is the poster doesn't take place in the past at all. The poster takes place in the future. You see, if you look at these two sections of the wall again, it's pretty clear that the hole blown open in the wall did not occur in the past, but rather hasn't occurred yet. You can tell this by looking at the current section of the wall. None of this section of the wall looks like there's ever been repairs on it. It doesn't look like a hole was blown open in it and then the Guardians went back and fixed it. So as the game is right now, if you go to this section of the wall right now, it's pretty clear that no repairs have taken place. I mean, for goodness sakes, the tiles that they use, it's the same rusted metal. I don't think they're gonna be like, okay guys, we've got to go repair this hole in the wall. Make sure to use the same exact rusted metal that are on all the other sections of the wall. That just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that they re-spray painted the red circle with Russian lettering. That makes absolutely no sense to me. So it looks right now, like even if you look at a chain link fence where there's been repairs, it's pretty clear where the repair has taken place because that repair is newer metal. It's newer material, and if we look at this section of the wall, there is no trace whatsoever that there is newer material utilized in the repairs of this wall. And if this portion of the wall was never repaired, that means it's blown open, not in the past, but in events yet to come, perhaps events in the Rise of Iron. During the lore video I made about the Iron Lords and the Rise of Iron, I surmised that the Rise of Iron refers to the rise of the next Iron Lord, which is you, the player. It makes total sense that you, after all you've done and after what you're going to do in this upcoming DLC, that your Guardian will become an Iron Lord. Perhaps there is one last massive invasion by a force, likely the Fallen, that does blow the hole in the wall and they try to invade the last city, and you are the hero. You are the next Iron Lord that defends the city in this next expansion. The rise of the next Iron Lord being you. To be quite honest, I think that that's just a little bit more likely to occur than going back in time. It would be cool, again, and I actually kind of hope they do have some missions or maybe have a strike where you are fighting in the Twilight Gap. Now, of course, that does have some continuity errors. If you're going back in the past and enemies drop weapons, you know, or engrams, and you take them forward in the future to decode them, that's definitely a little bit weird. There's some problems with that occurring storyline-wise. Now, of course, the way to get around this is that it doesn't just take place in the past, it's that you actually teleport or time travel into the past, because there is Vex technology that again lets you travel into the past. We already know that the Vex can manipulate time, so perhaps you utilize that factor and you can go back in time. Maybe you are one of the Guardians that turn the tide in battle and no one knows what happened to them. Well, it's because they teleported back to the future. But again, the main evidence for this theory of this taking in the past is because people think that this promotional poster shows what was, but rather it shows, you know, from what I've shown, that there's no repairs. It shows what is going to happen in the future. So I think it's more likely that another battle occurs for the fate of the last city. Now, of course, there is one theory that blows my evidence out of the water and does make it seem like perhaps we are going into the past with this DLC, and that simply is that Bungie didn't plan on doing this from the beginning. You see, my theory and the way it is now, again, we have this section of the wall, no repairs have taken place, all of that is very true, and yet perhaps Bungie didn't plan on doing that. I mean, my theory would have to be that this wall, Bungie planned on doing this all along, and this wall has a section that's been repaired and all of that. Perhaps Bungie is just wanting to do this and they don't really care. Perhaps actually we're going to see an update come about and this wall suddenly will have a repaired section all of a sudden. So it is a possibility that Bungie again just wants to do this and they are not worrying about a little continuity error in the story and instead just wants the player to have a better, more fun and more interesting time in this next DLC, which makes that whole theory about going back in time quite possible. I guess we're really just gonna have to wait and see what happens involving the Rise of Iron DLC, but let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Now that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating or sharing this video. I greatly appreciate it. Now if you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickHackis. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.